Good morning and welcome to another conversation with Mose. And as always, I pray life is treating you well wherever you are in the world, and that you're one day closer to your dreams, prayers, and hopes coming true. I first want to say Happy New Year to each and every soul listening, and even to the ones that aren't listening. I hope you had a wonderful, prosperous, peaceful, love-filled, overwhelming joy abound year. I hope you got through some tough times. I hope you climbed a mountain you needed to climb, swam a sea you needed to swim, that you're in a better place going into the new year. And that being said, I was going to start it off with a poem, but on the next week's episode, I'll start getting back to the poetry and doing a poem before the podcast. You know, I love sharing poetry with you, my poetry, other poets. But today's subject matter for the new year is My Renaissance 2024. And I want to talk about the word Renaissance. You know, it was definitely influenced by Beyonce, of course, this subject matter, experiencing my own Renaissance. But I want to share with you the definition of Renaissance for those that may not know exactly what it means. And it means, let me see here, let me look. Let me see. An intellectual philosopher studying a wide variety of subjects. And of course, this could apply to a man or a woman, which brought my attention to myself. And I said that to say that, well, there's a couple reasons I call it the Renaissance, my Renaissance. I've discovered a lot of things about myself this year that it's not that I didn't know, but I wasn't really focused on it. Like earlier this year, I lost my temper. I lost my cool. I lost my mojo to emotional turbulence, I guess you could say. And I fell into a depression because I felt like I allowed someone or a situation to make me lose my cool. While I was creating all this, writing poetry, taking pictures, and being creative, being my Renaissance self, I was allowing things to take me off my path, take me away from my purpose. And I felt guilty about that. And I'm still forgiving myself for allowing people to, and again, situations to take me off course, change my direction, change my mood, my attitude. And I decided that was the only thing I wanted to do in 2024 is to continue to be the best Renaissance man I can be. This is my Renaissance period, and walking in that every day, creating something, doing something, because those are the things that bring me joy. Podcasting, writing, creating. That's my go-to place. And you can't allow anybody to take you off course. I mean, in terms of losing your Jesus, as they say, or losing your religion, because I've allowed too many things to change me. And I just started taking selfies again with my partner, with myself, with my dog. And I wasn't a fan of selfies. And actually, I'm still not. I'm growing back into it to where I like who I see. And you wouldn't know it to look at my pictures. You probably think I'm just this confident guy who thinks he has it all together, but I am not. Don't get me wrong, I'm confident in who I am, but I felt like I could see my pain in my images, in my pictures. And I'm blessed that you can't see my pain. You might be able to see something, but not the way I see it. And my gifts were taking a back seat to my problems. And I'm like looking around and seeing all this stuff I've created. And I'm thinking, why am I letting my gifts take a back seat when they are what keep me going, what keeps me alive? Why am I allowing this to change my soul? And I'm not saying it's going to be easy to do. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying, but this, if you want to lose weight, if you want to get in shape, if you get your mind right and your heart right, everything else will follow after. Whether you want to write a book, a screenplay, whatever it is your goals are, if your mind and your heart is right, it'll fall in place. And then the other thing I've learned, it's not even a lesson, it's more like a lifestyle. I'm a loving person, and we feel guilty. We call ourselves suckers because people have taken advantage of our love, our kindness, our friendship. That makes us great people. And I don't feel like a sucker. I have no regrets about the people I've helped, people I've cared about. I'm a good man. Why should I feel bad about? Yeah, you learn the lessons. You try not to make the same mistakes with the people that don't appreciate it. But I'll never feel bad about being a kind person. If you meet me in the right place and the right opportunity, you'll get to see my heart and my drive, what makes me who I am. And I am grateful to be this man. And when you start allowing the world to change who you are, that's a problem. And when you start realizing your body is sacred, your heart is sacred, your mind is sacred, you'll treat it better. You won't share spaces with people. You won't share your body, your thoughts. You'll do better in terms of your choices. And it's not about being guarded. Maybe to an extent it is. But what I'm saying to you is I've learned to just embrace who I am. And I've embraced myself before, but not this way. I love my gifts. I look around. I appreciate my gifts. I love, like, for example, I sold my first photography book, my first coffee table book that I'm really proud of. And I sold my first Black Wall Street image in my store, All Things Moetic. And I didn't sell a lot of things this year, but the things that I did sell meant a lot to me. Those new customers meant a lot. And I don't think they know the impact of what they did for my self-esteem as a creative person. And finishing my screenplay, or at least the first draft of it, I'm very proud of it. And I'm going to do the best I can to make it happen. And I know with God's help, it will happen. And I'm actually going to do a whole podcast on the screenplay. Not so much what it's about, but some of the influences and some of the reasons why, the importance of my screenplay and why I want to do it and why it's so important to me, why it means so much to me, even if I never write another movie, and I believe that I will. But changing my attitude, and people always say you got to choose joy every day. You really do. And I'm saying if you choose joy, everything will fall in place. If you choose happiness, everything falls in place. Yeah, you're going to have a bad day. You're going to have a shitty experience one day, and then you're going to have a great one the next. But you got to keep your attitude in check. Because I've fell prey to depression way more times than I care to admit, and I just don't like that feeling. I just don't. I'm willing to do whatever for myself. It's not good for my partner. It's not good for my family. It's not good for me to be sad or angry all the time. That's not even, and again, my gifts, my soul is taking a back seat to my problems. Allowing the world into my thoughts, into my sleep, where I can't sleep at night, or, we can get into taking medications for our depression or for our physical ailments. But at the end of the day, what we feed our mind and our heart is we have control over that. There's no medication for a broken heart or a disappointed situation. And it took me losing my temper at a job I was contracting at. And the details don't really matter, but I really lost my temper. And I haven't lost my temper like that since I was in my 20s. I mean, really lost my temper. And if you didn't know me, you probably would have thought something was wrong. Like, I've never allowed myself to get, I promised myself I would never allow myself to get that way. But God knew that I would. But it's funny how you can find the good in every situation. And now I know, don't stop listening to that small voice. But allow God to help you get clarity. And then the other thing, I'm in a space of forgiveness. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but I am. It's something, again, I've quoted this before, something Bob Marley said that, and I'm going to kind of put my twist on it, that the people you love will hurt you in some way. You just have to figure out who's worth fighting for. And I really believe that. And I think going into the new year, you have to figure out who's worth fighting for. What job is worth fighting for? What person, what marriage, what child, what parent? And how bad do you love that person? Because sometimes we love people that don't love themselves. And I've met those people, strangers, and it's made me appreciate the love I have for myself. You know, I might not be rich or famous, but I do have a genuine love for myself. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. But when you meet people that have no love for themselves, self-destructive and critical, and, you don't even know how they making it. And it's just simple stuff. And I've been at this game called life, like I said, for 55 years. But I've been really trying to be a successful writer, all these things, all these dreams I've been working toward. And the other thing I'm not going to do is put a timeline on it. I don't care if I'm 60 years old before my ship comes in. Some people didn't make it to 60. I've been putting a timeline. If I don't become famous by this thing, or if I don't get this movie out by such and such, I'm not doing that. I'm not. Like I said, if you get your heart and mind right, things will fall in place. So I'm reaching out to everybody, and you have to find your own Renaissance period. Let this be your Renaissance. Read the books that you wanted to read and allow yourself to attract all those things that you want better for yourself. Go to an art museum, see a movie that you've never seen before. Broaden your mind, your perspective. I mean, I'm a Renaissance man because I've listened to different types of music through my life. I love jazz, I love country, I love alternative, I love hip hop, I love reading all kinds of books. And it's funny when you're talking, I've been in different conversations with people this year, and I didn't realize how many books I've actually read. You don't realize it until you're talking to people and you're like, wow, I've read that book. I know this music. I've seen that movie. And that's wonderful. I love to cook. I love watching cooking shows. I know different types of food. I know, it's because I've allowed myself to be like a sponge and soak all that stuff up. And we all are Renaissance people. And I want this to be the year of the Renaissance. Because again, I think Beyonce definitely spearheaded something. And I have to say, I love that CD. And the reason why I love it so much is I love the statement that she's making for, of course, gay people, specifically gay men, black gay men. And also the statement she's making for women. And I like the aggression, the anger, the I don't give a damn attitude, because sometimes you're in that space. It's just because people were like, oh, I can't believe she's saying all these things and all this vulgarity. But my thing is, sometimes you're in that space, you pissed off, and you just plain don't give a fuck, what people think. And you spend most of our lives worrying about what people think about us. if we look fat, if we look old, if we look, did we say the wrong thing? It's never going to be. Somebody's always not going to like you. Somebody's going to always have shit to say. And the thing is, we can't, that's a prison we lock ourselves in. And I'm one of those people that has done it. I'm looking at myself. I'm older. I can see the wrinkles in my face. My body's not the same as it was. I'm very insecure about things that I haven't been insecure about in years. But I know how to fix that. But I'm not going to let nobody else tell me that I don't look good, that I'm not a good person, and that I'm not valued. And as a black man, she reminded me how fierce we are. Black people are awesome. We have our issues, we have our shortcomings, but I do blame white people for that. That I do. I feel like if we were, again, on a level playing field, it would be different. We wouldn't have hang-ups with each other. We wouldn't be tearing each other down, and we wouldn't be trying to kill and rob from each other. We've been conditioned to turn on each other. I really believe that. And that's why I refuse to do certain things. I mean, there are certain things I don't agree with us, but I feel like we've been conditioned to do it. And that's where I get into the forgiveness. Is it easy to forgive people that have hurt you? Of course not. But I know what I want for my life, and I know who I want to share. I also was watching an interview with Dolly Parton, and the lady who was interviewing her asked her, how has she managed to stay so successful? And I loved her answer. She said she grew up poor, dirt poor. And she's had the same prayer, I guess she said, her whole life. And she said, I might misquote it. She prays that the Lord gives her enough to spare and enough to share in terms of her financial wealth. And I know that she used the money from The Bodyguard, the royalties from I'll Always Love You, to put into a black neighborhood in Nashville. And she said enough to spare and enough to share. And I think that's awesome. And I feel the same way. And I just never thought about it in a prayer. And it sounds so simple. But that's who I am. And even though I've let people change my attitude and my mood sometimes, and I get pissed, and I am a Renaissance man. And if you take time to take stock of your life, you'll realize you're a Renaissance person too. And then we go through different stages in our lives. If you read my poetry books, all 14, you'll catch me at a different stage in every one of those books. And I could tell you where I was when I wrote those books, where I was mentally, emotionally, physically. And that's why I am. When I write from a place of the heart. And I'm learning to be more and more honest in my poetry. Not that I wasn't before, but I'm more honest now. And I want to live till I die. And I mean it just like that. Because the one thing I know for sure, we're not promised. We say this all the time, I'm going to do the best. We think we got the next second, and we really don't. And I always think before I go to sleep at night, what am I leaving behind when I close my eyes? Am I leaving something for my mom or my partner or my sister and brother, my nieces and nephews? But I can honestly say there's so much that surrounds me that speaks for me. If you didn't know me and they wanted to introduce me to you, there's so much. You could Google me, Mose Harden Jr., and you're going to get me. You're going to get a quote. You're going to get my voice. You're going to get these podcasts. You're going to get my images. You're going to see what I care about. And that brings me joy. Because one day I Google myself every now and again, and I'm like, oh my God, I've done all of that. And it seems like a lot for somebody who doesn't have any money, So it's really kind of weird to see all these things that I've accomplished. I've been in the music industry. I have a lot of stories about that. And I feel like I've had like 6 lives. And I love it. I'm so proud of everything I've accomplished. Even the bad stuff that's happened to me. It made me appreciate me. Again, and that's why I say this year will be my Renaissance year. And I am a Renaissance man. I am. But the other thing that for me, I want to be around other people that are Renaissance people, women and men, that recognize the power in their knowledge, in their energy, people that consider themselves sacred. And when I say sacred, I mean your body, your mind, and your heart, as I said before. And this sacredness I had before I got with my partner. I was already in this place. That's why it's not, I can say I would never cheat on him. Not because we haven't had problems, we haven't had issues, but I would never go there. And I can't speak for another man. I can't speak for another human being, but my body is sacred. As imperfect as it is, my body and my heart and mind are just sacred to me. They're not for consumption by everyone. So I didn't feel that way when I was in my 20s and 30s. But my late 40s and 50s, totally different space. And what I feed my soul, what I feed my mind, I'm very careful. Because you do become what you feed your soul. If you're around angry people all the time, you're going to be angry. You're around a whole bunch of sad people, you're going to be sad. You got to mix it up. You got to mix it up and do more than what you know. Step out of your comfort zone, whatever that looks like, and do you. And if you got girlfriends that are always going to Kentucky Fried Chicken every night, then you might need to cut them loose. Or maybe once a week. If you're trying to lose weight, why would you hang out with somebody that eats chicken every day? Nothing wrong with the people that do it, again. But for the people that are really trying to be in a better place with their body, then you got to change your lifestyle. And I think people that have a Renaissance attitude know what to change, know what to do. You ain't got to make an announcement. You ain't got to tell people what your moves are. It's about really living your best life. Reading, feeding, dancing like nobody's watching you. I do that all the time. I haven't done it in a while, but I hope to get back to TikTok, and I'm going to do some. Moses is actually going to dance again. But I'm learning to just let things happen. And that's what I plan to do this year. Let my life happen. Let things happen, but keep my attitude in check. I can't allow myself to get angry like that. It's okay to lose have a bad day, but get back in line. Don't let your anger take you from your purpose. And as angry as I get, the one thing I am proud of about myself is that I'll never get online and put people down, especially my people. And I've been hurt by a lot of black people, family, friends, you name it. But they know who they are. I don't need to go online to speak ill of them. They know exactly who they are. And they could speak on me. I can't stop anybody from having thoughts or whatever, but I'm not retaliating. That could be the last conversation you have a heart attack because you arguing with somebody that pissed you off. Is that what you want your legacy to be? And I'm focusing on my legacy, what I want to leave behind, what I want my legacy to be. Like James Baldwin and Langston Hughes, and it's Toni Morrison. They're like my heroes. I mean, I really want to have that kind of, if I can get a quarter of that kind of legacy, I'll be happy. And they were all Renaissance people, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, I actually am proud of myself. And wherever you are in the world, pat yourself on the back. No matter what you accomplish, even if nobody knows what that is. You bought your first home, you sold your first home, you're getting out of debt. Whatever it is, celebrate that. I'm a firm believer in celebrating yourself. I don't care if it's a candle and a cupcake. Take the time to celebrate your accomplishments. Big, small, insignificant. Those are the things that make life interesting. And I know God recognizes it. I know that I know that I know. So, also, before I get off, I want to talk about my store, All Things Moetic. And I want to say I'm going to continue to put baskets and more books and more images in my store. So please stop by whenever you get a chance and definitely share on my Etsy page, all things Moetic. I'm definitely going to, like I said, put more imagery and more books. And I am going to work on another poetry book, but it'll probably be a while. And that'll be my 15th book. And then also I want to talk about my Black Experience exhibit. I'm still working on the details, but I am hoping for I'm not going to say planning. I am working on an event for next month, for February. But it will happen when it happens. So I know that it will happen. How? And it's just going to come together. And I'll give you the details in future podcasts. And I'm trying to do it in a way where people can participate even if they can't come. I'm trying to do like a virtual, if you want to buy something from the actual exhibit. I'm trying to do like a live podcast or some kind of, I'm trying to work out the details with that. But anyway, at least with the first one anyway. But anyway, I want to say Happy New Year once again. I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting anybody that's listened to a podcast, shared a podcast, bought something from my store, reposted something I posted. And if I inspired you in any kind of way to do something, forgive somebody, fall in love, whatever, let something go, then I did my job. And I'm grateful for that. So I want to say once again, wherever you are in the world, I pray life is treating you well and that you're one day closer to your dreams and prayers coming true. Thank you for listening.